We was extorting. We was robbing. Selling flesh. I was in the flesh business.
Yeah.
What I want the viewers to know that you talking to you talking to the person that basically laid a foundation for the war that later on occurred with my friend Cadillac.
Okay, so you guys, we have none other than Nathaniel McQueen-El, Moorish American. He's somebody that in the popular vernacular, which is not always accurate, would be known as someone who was a leader in the quote-unquote D.C. blacks, though nobody really calls themselves that, I guess, right? So this gentleman has an excellent book, a powerful book out called The Hills of D.C. It's on Kindle. I've been making my way through the 600 pages and powerful testimony of his life's journey from growing up to child in the first major city in America to become predominantly black through his time in federal prison, his time engaging in some behaviors maybe he's not happy about now, but maybe dealing with, it was choices he made with the situations he was faced with. He became a leader in the federal and Lorton prison system, and he is a guy that stood up for and participated in some very serious prison violence with white supremacists. His best friend was one of the people murdered by the Aryan brotherhood, and they gave as good as they got and all that. So he saw my story the other day on AB versus DC Blacks. It was really just info I got from the internet and strung together, and he reached out to me, and we've been having some great combos. So always remember, go get his book, The Hills of DC. Welcome, Nathan McQueen-El. Thank you. So let's jump into something a little exciting, and then we'll backtrack. When did you first hear the phrase Aryan Brotherhood, and when did you or any of your friends or associates encounter them?
Oh, the first time I heard the phrase Aryan Brotherhood, I was down in Lorton, behind the wall.
That's the D.C. city sort of prison, for those who don't know.
Yeah. So it's Lorton. It's a maximum security prison for D.C. prisons in Fairfax, Virginia.
Which has been closed.
That's right. And I was, first time I heard, I think it was probably around about 1980.
What was the context? What was said about them?
Oh, they was talking about Mills, because he was down in Atlanta at that time.
Oh, Barry Mills, the Baron Mayor. Okay.
Yeah. They sent him down to Atlanta, and they had a ride down there.
And he cut a guy's head off.
Yeah.
A white guy who's throwing a bad drug deal or something.
Mm-hmm. And that's the first time I heard about him. And then I heard they was in the federal system, because, see, I was in the federal system in the earlier. Yeah. And I'd like to explain something to you. I went into the federal system in 1971. Okay, it wasn't at that time a whole lot of D.C. prisons.
You went for bank robbery?
Yes, I went in there for bank robbery. Yes, and armed bank robbery. And at that particular time, there wasn't a lot of D.C. prisons in there, because Lorton wasn't sending their state prisons into the system. And then when they started that, they done that because of overcrowdedness. And they started sending a lot of their state prisoners. The only prisoners that was in the federal system at that particular time, D.C. prisoners, were prisoners who actually had federal charges or who violated certain laws on the compound down at Lorton, and they got federally charged, and they were sent into the federal system. The Aryan Brotherhood at that particular time, it wasn't even known of.
But there was a lot of white supremacists.
A lot of white supremacists, skinheads, bikers. And I went down to Petersburg. Now, what I want the viewers to know, that you're talking to you're talking to the person that basically laid a foundation for the war that later on occurred with my friend Cadillac. But
and you're and specifically, it's not just the inmates per se from D.C., it's the Moorish Americans from D.C. And that's the hat you're wearing. For those not familiar, you're part of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
And I'm going to explain that a little later, that, you know, we don't subscribe or adhere to that word black. But when I first went down there, since I just mentioned that, let me stay on that right there. You know,
that's an important thing for people to know.
And I want to be clear that Raymond Lee Cadillac Smithfield was not the black leader that they saying he was. He was a Moorish leader. You know, he led the Moors. We don't believe in black. To say that we are black DC blacks, it's like to say we DC niggas. See, that word is a derogatory word that derived during the time of slavery. The
control mechanism.
Right. They put that on us Negroes, you know, coon, shine, niggas, colored folks. You see what I'm saying? People are named after the land. No such land as
people should get to name themselves, not have to accept what someone else calls them. Exactly. I totally agree with that.
Exactly. So we was the DC Moors. I led the Moors down in Petersburg for the first ride, you know, that I heard of in the system. You see
what was the background of that?
My homie.
Petersburg, Virginia Federal Prison, for those.
Yeah. In Petersburg, Virginia. I had a homie now, the name of Papoose. It was real close. Matter of fact, he was my first friend. I had just got on the compound. I hadn't even been on this the first day on the compound. Right? So the guys is telling me that the Europeans, I call them Europeans because that's what they are, the descendants from Europe. I don't call them white because white means purity, purity means God, and God means the rule of the land. See, and that's why they term themselves that and term us as being black, you know, which is synonymous with death. But anyway, getting back to the story, my friend, I was waiting for him to come out the dining room. So he came out the dining room and he told me, he said, Ball, he had tears in his eyes. So I said, what's wrong, Pap? So he said, man, you wouldn't believe what happened. He said, man, I went to sit down to eat. He said, wonder where for me to sit. He said, so I sat down with, you know, with two white boys.
Just at an open table.
Yeah. He said it was two white boys at the table. He said, and I sat there, so I was just trying to eat. He said, so the big old white boy stood up and told me, say, nigga, get the fuck up and get the fuck away from the table. So I said, oh yeah, he disrespected you like that? So he said, yeah. I said, calm down. I said, point him to me when he come out. When they came out, he pointed to me. He stepped to me. He said, call me a nigga now. Before the European could say anything, we started rumbling. Now, he was maybe like about inch taller than me. I'm 6'4". He probably outweighed me. Yeah, he probably outweighed me about like 30-something pounds. You see what I'm saying? So we got to run. So he had some buddies. And I had my good friend, Cockeye, Crowder Bay, who's still in the federal system, been in there for 40, almost 50-something years.
He's been in there since that time. Oh, wow.
Yes, there was some more. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, did he get interviewed on that Marion documentary?
Yes, he did.
I know who that is. Yep.
Cockeye.
Oh, wow.
Cockeye, Crowder Bay.
Crowder.
Yeah, okay, we was all down Petersburg together. So he took it, jumped on the other guy, and my friend Skeezy jumped on the other guy. And before you know it, a full-scale riot escalated. You know, we was in front of the kitchen. Then we was on the lawn, maybe like about 20 DC.
Were all those guys Moors with you, or just all from DC, or a combination?
No, it was just a handful of us Moors, and the rest of them was like DC, what I call Asiatics. It was brothers.
So DC sticks together, and then within that, it's Moors, but there must be sometimes some tension between the non-Moors and the Moors.
Yeah. It's, it was.
You're living a certain way and have
certain times, it was tension, certain times. I mean, the thing about me and Cadillac, the thing about me, I didn't have no picks. See, There wasn't no pics. I mean, if you disrespect me in any way, if I thought you was disrespecting me in any way, you know, I was going to handle that. Physical. You know, I was going to take care of that. So, you know, so anyway, before we know it, a full-scale riot had broke out. Several guys was laying on the ground. They got stabbed, you know, and then when this riot squad came in, I bounced. I got up out of there. You see what I'm saying? And the guy I was running, he rumbled. He stood up. I put him down on the ground at least 3 times. When I left him, that's where he was at. You see what I'm saying? And you know what's so ironic about this guy, particular guy? He turned out to be one of my favorite business associates.
Oh, and
he got me to stab some of his homeboys. You see, and he paid me to stab some of his homeboys. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, wow.
So he gained a lot of respect from me from that altercation right there.
Oh, wow.
You see what I'm saying? And so when
it's levels to the gangsterism, that's for sure.
Oh, there ain't no question. When I was in Petersburg, man, I couldn't believe the racism there. You know, I mean,
this was what, 1971? You know, when I talk to younger people and they're talking about the police, I kind of have to tell them, like, to call a white person in 1970 racist is like saying they had 2 legs and 2 arms. It just was really American culture at that time. Is that kind of fair to say?
That's what it was.
Most white
I agree with that.
Even if they weren't bad
but
people,
see,
maybe, but
I couldn't understand it because you said just yourself at the top of this interview that I come from a city that was predominantly people
the
of color.
first city in the country to be like that.
That's right. You see what I'm saying? You know, they were Asiatic, so I never seen this sort of racism. You know, I mean, they was, calling brothers and coons, niggas, and, and
getting away with it in most of the rest of the country. Yeah.
Yeah, they was controlling all the dope. They was controlling all the alcohol. They was controlling the pools, football, basketball pools. They was running everything. They was running.
And a lot of money gets made in those federal prisons. Oh,
ain't no question. A whole lot of money. So we took it on. I started, I organized. I organized some D.C. Moors and I organized some D.C. brothers. You see what I'm saying? And I took on some contracts. This is how I got moved to Petersburg. And I was extorted. I was taken from the Italians. Because Italians
by yourself, or you got a couple guys with you?
Oh no, I said my crew. I had a crew of soldiers. I had a crew of DC. So I tell them go stab somebody. It was no second thought about it. They go and stab. That's the same way like down in law.
How wide open? You're talking about how in the early 70s at both Lewisburg, particularly. How, I mean, as an inmate, you got walked in there and you were on your own.
Lewisburg, let me tell you about Lewisburg.
And that's known as Mafia's Row. Like there's a lot of New York mobsters there. Like that was a mix of some lot of big time. Oh, you would have been there when Jim. Were you there?
Gardy's brother was there.
Was Jimmy Hoffa there when you were there?
No, Jimmy Hoffa, when I came in at 74.
Okay, he had been there in like 69 or something, or 71 or some shit. Yeah. He just messed.
74. But before we go into Lewisburg, I want to tell you about El Reno.
Okay.
I was only on the compound, maybe, on Petersburg about 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, so that riot popped off and got you out of there.
Man, they got me up out of it. Because not only that, I was organized. Like I say, I was organizing. I was extorting. I was having guys stabbed. I was making money. You see what I'm saying?
Probably the other people that had been making money didn't want you there anymore.
No, especially not the Italians. I was taking their alcohol. I was taking their drugs. They was working in a mechanic shop, and they had built a car. So they would go out. They was allowed, the ones that had minimum custody would dry their car out, and then they would put their dope in alcohol.
Wait, that sounds like, but prisons used to be, people don't know, prisons used to be very haphazard. So the idea that you got this, let me paint the picture for the listener. You got some convicted, like, made members of the mob. They're building a car in the shop. You're allowed to go for a ride out in the free world where they meet up with somebody and stuff some dope in it. By dope, you mean heroin. You come back in, you got a guy like you, hand it over. That's a wild
Exactly.
Scene.
That's exactly what I was doing. And plus, they used to set their canteen out on the dock. You know, one of my homies was working in there. He would set canteen out for the tags on the dock. I would send my soldiers down there to take it. Then I would send my soldiers into the mechanic shop to take the drugs and the alcohol. I can't hear you.
Older?
What you say?
Were the Italians mostly older? Did they have nobody that could really stand up to you guys?
They was young, but they was scared to death, man. They hadn't seen nobody like me.
Right, it's a different, they're doing their violence in the context. It's almost like they're in the military. They're like in this system, whereas if you come from a different kind of environment, it's trained to go by myself right now at any time.
Man, let me tell you something, man. One of the first things I learned when I stepped inside the federal system, the inmates, listen to what I'm saying. The inmates and the guards, they were scared to death of D.C. prisoners, man. They didn't want us in the
breed, different. Well, that was, you were probably
a different breed.
That first wave of, I mean, what happened in the 80s with just these lot of young Black prisoners coming in. And here's, let me say a difference in my experience, like with white prisoners and you and talking about the Aryan brotherhood. The white prisoners are kind of a dichotomy. There's a small amount of them that are rough guys. A lot of them are, it's kind of hard to go to jail as a white man. So a lot of them are dope fiends, they end up in jail. A lot of the Black inmates are kind of regular people that, given a different circumstance, would not be in prison. So you're probably more effective at doing different things because you're regular, smart, people that might do rough things, but and they were probably used to dealing with more troubled people. And then as the mass incarceration ramped up, and you're just putting all these guys from inner cities who really aren't really all that fucked up, and they're able to function a lot better.
See, around the time my close friend Cadillac Smith Hill got killed, it was a whole lot of DC inmates.
So let's fast forward to that day. So you get out of federal prison in about 76.
I was sent home from Lewisburg.
And so you had been doing your thing in Lewisburg, getting money. You get out. Did you have some money waiting for you?
I had some people waiting for me. I had my childhood friends that was waiting for me.
Were you able to send money out, though, of all that money you were making in there?
Yeah, I was able to send money out.
Okay, so you come home.
See, I was not only making money, when I was in Lewisburg, me and Cadillac and Carl Kelly and David Ashby Bates, we was making money. We was making money from not only, we was extorting, we was robbing.
Oh, I almost forgot two key stories. We
were selling flesh. I was in the flesh business.
Yeah, let me.
Flesh, homosexual.
Okay, listen. Let me tell the viewers something. So we're gonna. We're talking on the phone. There's a lot of interesting things, and I want to touch on a lot. But I want you guys to go get his book, The Hills of D.C. I want you to follow him on Instagram, Nathan McQueen-El. The book is on Kindle. You can get physical copies. Engage with this guy if you're interested. I'm just trying to give you a highlight reel. He's told his own story and he's done it well. So I forgot something key. So two things here still back before you get out of the fence. Let's talk about, I just did a series of stories on El Rookin, Jeff Fort. Jeff Fort approached you and Cadillac, and I'm now the Moorish System of America is headquartered out of Chicago originally. Jeff Fort's from Chicago.
That's right. That's where our Grand Temple is at.
So tell us about Jeff Fort, the founder of the Black Keystone Nation, becoming a Moor in prison personally under your guy.
Yeah, we was out in the rec shack out on the yard in Leavenworth Penitentiary.
And Leavenworth was hardcore too.
Yeah, it was in 73. maybe it might have been the last
and
part.
He was in Leavenworth for fraud, which is really inappropriate, but they wanted, like, he shouldn't have been there technically because he was doing fraud sentence.
I mean, I shouldn't have been there in terms of age because I think me, Jeff, and another homie of mine, Ralph Walker Hill, we was the three youngest prisoners there.
Leavenworth was for like the kidnappers and hijackers and old school gangsters and hitmen.
And the age limit was 27.
How old were you?
I was 24.
Oh, so Jeff you were supposed 25. To be 27 to even go to Leavenworth.
Yeah, you had to be 27 years old, but that she was an exceptional case. Like me,
but
Jeff,
Fort only had a fraud case. Like he didn't even have a violent crime case.
No, he had a fraud case for investment of
so tell us about you
money that Nixon gave.
Yeah,
but you know what? He came to me in Cadillac. We was lifting weights. Cadillac was on the bench, and I was standing over top of him, spotting. So we saw him when he eased over because we didn't play nobody coming in our circle. You see what I'm saying? Unannounced. But he came over real respectfully. You see what I'm saying?
He's a great leader. And he knows how to deal with people.
That's right. He know how to deal with me. He's a strong man himself. You see what I'm saying? So he approached me because I was standing up. He said, man, he introduced himself. So I'm Jeff Ford. He said, I'm from Chicago. So I told him, I said, I know who you are, bro. I said, we know who you are. How can we help? So he said, man, he said, most of my life, he said, I'm out of Chicago. He said, I see the Moors. He said, I always wanted to, become involved and study more science. He said, it would be an honor for me to study under you two brothers.
And for those who don't know, the Nation of Islam grew out of Moorish Science Temple. That's a big, long story, but just to give people some context, if they're not familiar with the Moorish Science Temple.
Yeah,
1913.
Totally 1913. Yeah. So
Noble Drew Ali.
We embraced him and told him, that's right, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. We embraced him and told him, say, look, you can come on into the temple, man, and become a part of it, you see what I'm saying? So he came into the temple. He was studying. Ralph Walker Hill was the one that was basically, teaching him. That's another one.
Did the Bureau of Prisons accept you as a religion at that time?
Beg your pardon?
Did the Bureau of Prisons accept the Moors as an official religious entity?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but you had to fight for that.
Yeah, Cadillac had divine minister papers.
You had to fight for that, or maybe somebody before you did, right?
No. Well, we came there. A brother by the name of H. Miller Ill, Hess Miller Ill. It was a logo circle that Dr. Aryan, another Moor, took to set up, a leader of the Moors. He set it up inside the institution. So, but when we came there, Miller Hill was gone. And St. Louis brothers, some elderly St. Louis brothers was running the temple. All this is in my book. So, if you want details of what happened, because we wound up stabbing the chief security and took all the literature.
Because they weren't
from the moderator and the chairman. Yeah. Because
they weren't following what they should have been.
They disrespected Drew Ali. See, and when they disrespected Drew Ali, me and Cadillac already knew that, we was going to straighten that because we didn't allow nobody to disrespect Drew Ali, just like we allowed nobody to disrespect ourselves. And Jeff, he was really significant because a brother got killed up in Chicago during our convention in 1974, and Jeff sent his soldiers up in there to protect.
That was an internal power struggle.
Yeah, he sent his soldiers up there to protect. You see what I'm saying? The sister Christina Price Bay and the Moors that was up there that was running the Grand Mason Temple, and this is how he got his nationality card in tribal name. A Bay. You see what I'm saying? So when he left the institution, he was functioning as a Moor in Chicago.
He started El Rookin. He made a lot of the BPS go to El Rookin, or they had to go on their own.
You see them El Rookin pictures that you got up on YouTube. You see all of them with this headdress on. This is the Moorish.
You're in one of those pictures. You're in one of those pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the tall guy in the back in one of them.
In the back, that's right. And Ralph Walker Hill is up front with his hand out like this here. That's who basically taught Jeff. You see, his lessons, his basic lessons about Moorish science. You see what I'm saying? But I want to get back. I want to say one other thing about the racism in the federal system. Because see, out of all of the institutions, Lewisburg, Leavenworth, all of them, El Reno was the most racist.
And what did you see in the machine shop?
Oh yeah, this is what I seen in the machine shop. My homie took me down to the welding shop to do me some blades, and he said, "Bob," he said, "I want you to look at this." So when I looked, I seen a big rebel flag flying in the corner with a staff on it, and then I looked at the floor. I seen the emblem of a burning cross carved into the cement, embedded in the concrete floor of the CO's office.
So that's the guards doing that.
Man, they was promoting racism.
That had to be
I saw two lives out there. This is why I'm telling you how I laid the foundation for the war that later on came. You see what I'm saying? In '82, after Thomas Silverstein killed Cadillac. You see what I'm saying? And then started another war was getting ready to break out in Lewisburg. You see what I'm saying? That was all about homosexuality.
Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I can tell you that story. Me and Cadillac was out on the rec yard lifting weights, and a couple of Moors came to us, and they said, because at that particular time, I think maybe me and Carl Kelly, we had probably about like 5 homosexuals that we was selling. You know, we would sell them, then I would go take them back.
But you didn't make them, so you didn't force them into that per se.
No, I didn't force them into it. That's what they was doing.
Like a pimp
they came to me, my homies in the witch days, and tell them, say, you need to go to Naeball out there because he gonna protect you. Ain't a whole lot of people out there can protect you. You go out there, they're gonna gang rape you and everything. So they used to come from the shoe over to, I stayed right next to the shoe in A block, and they would come over there and they would say, I need your protection. So I said, okay, as long as you're willing to work, you know, to get money. You see what I'm saying? Because there ain't no protection for free. You see what I'm saying?
What did sex sell for in there?
Yeah, so we was in.
How much did sex sell for? What did somebody want to have sex with one of them? What was it? What did it cost?
I sold a brother. You see, because he's a now brother in Baltimore. You probably know him. But I sold one boy for $500. You see what I'm saying? You know, and then I let him keep him. He thought he was gonna keep him from now on. I let him keep him about a week, then I went and took him back. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, because I was renting them out. We was renting them out for like $50 to $100. All depends on how much time people wanted to spend with her.
Wow.
You see? So 3 young Moors came to me in Cadillac that was up under us. Cadillac was the grand sheik, I was the chair. He came to us, so they said they wanted to make some money by having some boys sell their bodies and their butt for them, you know. So I said, well, is he a homosexual? So they said, no, we don't know. But they say he's a European. So I said, well, you know, you can't just take nobody, you know, manhood. You see what I'm saying? We're not into that. You know, find somebody that
is into it already.
That's willing to work with you like that. I said, I understand you want to make some money. Y'all want to make some money and, you know, and live halfway decent up in here. You see what I'm saying? So I said, I'm advising you not to do that. Leave them alone. Go on back and find somebody, you know, that's willing to work with you. They didn't do that. See, they went and they jumped on the boy. Because me and Cadillac wasn't about telling other men what they could do and what they couldn't do. As long as they didn't violate none of the laws of Drew Ali, you see what I'm saying? They was on their own. Any condition you create, you got to be willing to go. So they went, all 3 of them, tried to take the boys' butt, rape them. And they failed that. You see what I'm saying? So one of the boys, Sipion Bay, one of the brothers, Sipion Bay, he went back to his cell. All three of them went back to their cell. They went back to their cell, and Sipion Bay, they're the bikers. The boy had some biker friends. They ran in there. They almost cut his head off. He just barely lived. He had a cut all the way from here, you know, just in his jugular. So they came to me in Cadillac. Say, Sipion Bay, man, he in bad shape. He in the hospital. So one of Cadillac's faults, loved him to death, was that he had a gun that was so quick, man, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, he had multiple murders out there in the street, and inside the institution, he had multiple stabbings, man. He wouldn't hesitate to go at some people. So he said, "Come on, Ball, let's suit up." So I said, "No, I don't think we should shoot up, Black." I said, "They created this condition." I say, I just told them what the law was. You sanctioned it. Then they went against that. I said, "Man, they don't have to straighten this up on their own." You see what I'm saying? I say, y'all created this condition. You got to redeem yourself with your own, you know. So we said we don't want to know nothing about it. This is what we told them. We said we don't want to know nothing about it. We're not involved. You see what I'm saying? We're not gonna get involved. So what Cadillac told him was a grand sheet. So maybe like about, couldn't have been no more, about like an hour or so later. You see what I'm saying? We coming off Black coming off the wreck pile, and we coming back in to where the blocks was at, and we seen two big old skinheads. They was following us off the yard. You know, you could sense with somebody trying to do you some harm, so they was trying to sneak us. They was part of the. They was with the white boy that got beat up. So, and they knew that we was leading the Moors, so I guess they figured, said, if we get them two, we good. We ain't got to worry about the rest of them. That's the heads. So we stepped up in the little vestibule where the drug thing was at and pulled out our knives. We kept our knives on us at all times. There was no such thing. Lewisburg was wide open.
And they weren't searching inmates. You could walk around.
Lewisburg had no guards. Only time you saw the guards was when it was in the dining room. You see what I'm saying?
Sounds like a scary place.
That's right. They weren't in the blocks. The blocks was wide open. They had no doors. Anybody could walk up to anybody's block, catch him in there on the chair, and kill him. So the skinheads, they sensed that we was waiting on. They turned around and went back. So when we went in, the Moors, you could feel the tension. Not just with the Moors, but you could feel the tension with everybody. Because they had found that same European that they tried to rape, they found him in the basement with a knife through him. See, he was dead. So they say the Moors at war with the Europeans up in here. Italians were scared to death. Oh man, they were scared to death. They had
a protector they had a hitter from D.C. with them.
They had a protector. My good friend. He was a very close friend of me in Cadillac.
But you fell out about that.
His name was Wade Bullet Brown. Yeah, he was their protector. He slung that knife for them. You see what I'm saying?
And you guys fell out about that.
Yeah, they took him. That's in the book. You see what I'm saying?
It was a DC.
We found out about that because he was up there with maybe like about 20 of them. I think Gene Guard and all of them was up there. He was up there with about 20 of them. And we came up to the rec area to meet, to strategize how we was going to do the skinheads. You see, and they saw us. And we felt the fear and everything. You see what I'm saying? And we seen the look of uncertainty in Bullet's eye because he was meeting with, these Europeans. And, he was a close friend of ours. Extremely close friend of me and Cadillac. You see what I'm saying? So we went back to our cell block. Long story short, the Italians dropped a note on us. I already know that because that's what they used to do. They didn't have no respect for the brothers. They tell on the brother quick. So they dropped a note on us and say that we was responsible for the killing of the European in the basement. So they come by and they locked us up. It was in 75. It was in 75. See what I'm saying?
So right before you got out.
Yeah, I got out in 76. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So they locked us down. They locked down me. They locked down Cadillac. They locked down Crump Bay. They locked down Shepherd Bay. They locked down Savage Hill. You see what I'm saying? They locked down D.C. Walk because that was basically the brothers who was functioning. We were functioning together in Lewisburg. There was some more Moors that was functioning, but we didn't function with them because of that infraction I told you about. When Jeff sent his people up in there, because of the internal fact, we weren't functioning and we was doing our own thing. You see what I'm saying? So when they locked us down, I stayed locked down. Me and Cadillac stayed locked down for 8 months in the same cell. Then they sent Cadillac back to Maryland. They put me back on the compound. They put Crump Bay back on, put everybody back on the compound, except for Shepherd Bay and Savage Hill. Some DC/Baltimore dude said that he saw them commit the murder. So they charged them with the murder, exonerated everybody else, and wound up convicting them. In 1976, you see, this wasn't long. I got out the hole. You see what I'm saying? We stayed in the hole almost a year. And then I was out the hole maybe like a week. Somebody dropped a note on. They didn't want me out in the compound. Somebody dropped a note on and said I was sex person. Just making them try to make them sell their body, which was false. You see what I'm saying? So then what they did, they still released me. I stayed locked up maybe about a week. They put me out. So now I had the worst caseworker. Man, in the whole Lewisburg Penitentiary. Everybody knew that. His name was Jesse James. He was case manager for A Block. He called me to his office and told me he was recommending me for parole. And I couldn't believe this.
They didn't want to deal with you no more.
The bottom line, let me make the long story short. The bottom line was that Lewisburg, they never wanted me there. They had refused me 3 times. You see, when I went to El Reno, you see what I'm saying, they refused me. Twice when I was in Leavenworth. See, they didn't want me. They said, we don't want this young leader up here because it's too many DC dudes up here. He gonna have too much control. You see, so they never wanted me there. But finally, they sent me there. You see what I'm saying? They sent me there. You see what I'm saying?
There was only 6 federal prisons then, right?
Only 6.
But you had to go somewhere.
Yeah, you had to go somewhere. It was Atlanta, Terre Haute, Lewisburg, Leavenworth, McNeil Island,
Milan,
and Maryland.
When did Milan open?
Maryland opened in
no, Milan. When did Milan, Michigan? What didn't that open in?
I don't know. Milan, Michigan was FCI.
Oh, you mean a USP? Okay, right.
Yeah.
Max security.
Federal Correctional Institution. With this called.
You're talking about there were 6 USPs, U.S. penitentiaries.
That's right. 6 penitentiaries. That's all they had. I don't know. They might got about 100 or something now. They didn't have but 6 of them then. So everybody knew everybody who was slinging that knife. You see what I'm saying? And that's what it was. It wasn't about no fist fights in the feds. See, it was about slinging the knife. And as much as, I'm not trying to toot my horn, but I'm going to be honest with you, man. I left a trail of blood all the way from Petersburg to Lewisburg. That's why I couldn't believe that they was going to release me.
They ain't want to deal with it.
My case manager went in my jacket and cleaned up every incident I had from Petersburg and El Reno. Now in El Reno, I fought about 20 police officers, 20 COs. All this is in my book. Person need to get my book. They want dates, time, actual events. You get real names and everything of people.
The Hills of D.C., Nathan McQueen-El, all in that book.
The only things I'm not talking about is cases I can't talk about. You see what I'm saying? Things I can't talk about that's a matter of public record, that's what I'm talking about. This book is not there to glorify nobody, you see what I'm saying? Not there to defame nobody, you know. It's just my life and how I live my life. And I learned that he was an informant. So I started extorting him for about like $10,000 a week. You rarely even seen the police knock on anybody's door because back at that time, everybody was keeping their mouth shut. The community was airtight. They wasn't telling on each other like that. You couldn't get information out of them. There were literally no rats back there then.
Ended up with a 27-year prison sentence there in the infamous Lorton Correctional Facility. So tell us about the murder conviction that sent you to Lorton. Were you innocent? Were you guilty? What happened? Okay, so welcome back to Mr. Nathaniel McQueen-El, Lorton legend, Washington, D.C. representative, and Moorish American. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, Al. How you doing?
Excellent. So we did an interview a couple weeks ago, talked about some pretty wild topics, some hot button stuff. And you have obviously you've lived a long life, done a lot of different kind of things. So we kind of did a little brief highlight reel, but we didn't go into kind of, who you are and where you came from and growing up. So let's go back in time and let's talk about.
Before we begin, I'd like to respond to a couple of comments that were left in the comment box of interview 1 and 2.
Okay.
Several of the interviewers accused me of lying. And I just want to briefly address that because I know the truth, honestly, it needs no support. But I would like to say to my viewers that in those 2 interviews and in my book, The Hills of D.C., there are absolutely no lies, no hyperbole, no fluff information. You get this information straight from the horse's mouth. One of the viewers accused me of lying about Jeff Ford Bay. Now, here's what I have to say to that particular viewer. You can fact check what I said. Jeff Ford Bay, or Jeff Ford, whatever you want to call him, Angel, was in Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary with me. He came to me and to my close friend and brother, Raymond Smithfield Cadillac, while we was on the rape pile. And he asked me, could he function under our leadership? That he was from Chicago and he knew a lot about the Moors and he always wanted to join the Moorish Science Temple of America. Now, it would be senseless of me to tell that story with any type of lies because Jeff Ford Bay is still living and he's right up there in the ADX in Florence, Colorado.
With some guys you know, probably.
Yeah, I sent him a book, but they turned it around. Sent it back to Amazon. So I just wanted the viewer to know that it was the D.C. Moors that brought him into the temple, that embraced him, and it was a D.C. Moor, Brother Ralph Walker Hill, that taught him his basic lessons. And it was Sister Christina Price Bay who gave him his tribal name of Bay, and it was me who issued him his nationality card. Now, I have no more to say about that. If a brother don't believe that, contact Jeff Ford Bay and see what he has to say about it.
I'm sure there's a few people they could ask.
Yeah. Well, and then you could Google it. It tells you where he first embraced Moorish science. Was in Leavenworth.
Well, because he's written he's done some writing himself.
Of course he has. Now, one other comment, another comment was Italian, accused me of lying.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's not a whole lot I can say about that. If you wasn't there, then you wouldn't know. But I will say that it was no exaggeration there. You got people in the street that can be as vicious and as ruthless as anyone could be. Because they got what? They got that burner in their hand. But however, it's different circumstances when you're in the penitentiary. You got to know how to sling that knife in order to protect yourself.
And be willing to.
And that's where the Italians came up short. I make no mistake about it. I extorted them. I robbed them. I took their alcohol. I took their drugs. I took money from their gambling pools. And that's a fact. Not trying to toot my horn or make me look no different from who I was. I'm merely telling my story. One other comment I like to, before we begin. The homosexuality in the prison, in the BOP. Now, a lot of people, they listen, but they don't hear.
Oh, that's right.
I made it plain. I said that my homies that was over in the chute, segregated housing unit, would send the homosexuals to me for protection. The operative word, protection. Now, if you're a homosexual and you have no other means of paying for that protection but to sell your body, then that's what it was all about. I was about surviving in there. I robbed, I extorted, and I protected them homosexuals. They was able to walk around the compound unmolested. They was able to walk around the compound. They wasn't being accosted. They wasn't being disrespected. And the only time I was basically seen was for me, Carl Kelly, or David Asher Bay, who was my partners. The only time we were seen with them was when we was transacting business, when somebody wanted to sleep with them. This is how I survived. I don't promote no homosexuality. I was in the belly of the beast. The same type of circumstances existed in Lorton. But what was uniquely different was I was at home. I didn't have to rob. I didn't have to extort. I didn't have to sell, protect the homosexual. I created a safe haven down there in Lorton for a lot of homosexuals and a lot of potential inmates who were about to be great. You see what I'm saying? So I don't want to be noted in history as being the type of guy that was advantage taken, because I wasn't. I was just an exceptionally strong guy that if you stepped on my toe and you didn't say, excuse me, then I was going to either smack you, I was going to break your jaw, your nose, or I was going to put my knife in you. It was just that simple. That's how I was raised. That's how I lived. Now, one other thing before we begin. I want to make it clear that I never stated that I was a holy man or a saint. I stated that I was a Moorish American. That's my nationality. That doesn't make me a holy man. You got people that's Christians, you got people with all sorts of nationalities, all sorts of Sunnis. It don't mean that because they embrace that religion that they holier than thou, that they're a saint. I was struggling with my higher self and my lower self. What I can tell you is that at this point in my life, hey, I haven't committed a crime in over 30 years. I've been out here in the street almost 20 years. I rarely have a negative thought. I am a righteous man. I'm not doing these interviews to glorify my position or to defame anyone's position. I'm doing this interview because I'm on a mission to uplift fallen humanity. And it takes finance to do that. So in order for me to get finance, I got to let the viewers know the contents of my book, The Hills of D.C. It's so much that you and I is getting ready to talk about. It's detailed, and so much we have already talked about is detailed in that book. They need to go to www.thehillsofdc.com if they want to know more. It's nothing but the truth in that. Thank you, Al, for letting me say that. You can go ahead with your interview now.
And one quick thing for those who don't know, to uplift fallen humanity is the mission of the Moorish Temple of America, correct?
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go back to young Naeball. How old were you? Well, let's even say, paint the picture of, so I do know Washington, D.C. was the first large city in the United States to become over 50% black. So paint the picture for us of what, around what years you were born and what was it like there? I mean, I'm sure bad things, but also it would have been one of the very few places where blacks had some degree of political and economic power. So what was your childhood like and how did you springboard into crime?
Well, I was born on Capitol Hill. That's why the name of my book is The Hills of D.C.
That's a neighborhood?
Yeah, Capitol Hill is the largest residential neighborhood in D.C. And at that time, D.C. was known as Chocolate City. Now, I got involved in crime. I maybe was like 8 years old. I probably was about 6 years old when I first started going to school, when I became involved in gang activity.
That's was DC segregated, heavily segregated? Were you,
no.
Did you, no?
It was Chocolate City because you didn't even see Europeans walking the streets. Only time
okay, and this is by what? This is the late 50s? Late 50s?
Yeah, the late 50s. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the late 50s. The only time you seen a European when it was a truant officer knocking on your door. You rarely even seen the police knock on anybody's door because back at that time, everybody was keeping their mouth shut. The community was airtight. They wasn't telling on each other like that. You couldn't get information out of. If you were known to be a rat, then you was ostracized from the community. You see what I'm saying? So it was literally no rats back then. And I came, so to speak, off the porch when I was 8 years old because my family was poor, but when my grandmother died and my grandfather died, that created hardship for my mother. My mother, at that time, she had 4 boys, and my grandmother stayed with me, my grandfather stayed with me, my uncle stayed with me, my aunt stayed with me.
Oh, wow.
That's how it was. We was all grouped up together. We had a big old house, and we made ends meet. Well, we were still poor, but we wasn't on welfare, nothing like that. But after my parents died, my mother had to seek financial assistance from the government. You see? So I took it upon myself at 9 years old to start hustling. My first hustle was I should go steal the soda bottles from the back of the Safeways and stores and turn them in because you would get $5 off of the 2-liter glass soda bottles. 5 cents off of the 2 glass liter soda bottle. You get a couple cases on when you had a little bankroll. And then I went from there, I should go to all the fountains. Union Station, Library of Congress, Reflector Pool, Flower Garden, all those spots where they had wishing wells. They should wish The tourists would come through and they would make their wish and they throw the silver dollars in there. And I was a good swimmer because I learned how to swim in the Anacostia River. So I used to go in there, get in the pools, and get a little bankroll. And I go back and I get that money to my mother. Most of the time, she wouldn't accept it. I had to find other ways, other means to give it to her because she knew I was out there doing something wrong to get that type of money. So my career started right there. I mean, I had a choice, but I didn't have a choice because, there was times my mother used to wake me up, and this was on a regular. She would wake me up 3 or 4 times out the week and send me to the Northeast Mission to pick up stale leftover donuts. And a lot of times that's all we had to eat. So I started like extorting. Extortion was something that came early in my life. I was starting a European. His family was well off. And he was one of my schoolmates. And I was starting a Chinese kid because his mother owned and father owned the laundry. And he had a paper route. So I was starting them. That's how I first started to get my bankroll together to really help my family. That's where it all began with me at.
This is
And
about
all
8 to
that's
10.
detailed in my book.
And you were what, about 10 or 11 when you started the extortion?
Oh, I was like 9. Yeah, I was like 9 years old. And then at 10 years old, I got locked up. 10 years old, that's the first time I got locked up. They caught me stealing, I had stole about like 50 silver dollars out of the Union Station, out of the Capitol reflectors, well. They're still there at the Capitol. And the officers chased me, ran me down. Then they locked me up. They let me go. And then I broke into a house not long after that. I'm not a house. My bad. I broke into a variety store not long after that. And the guys I was with, they was all older than me, but I was leading them. I never fought them right to this day. I still talk with a couple of them. They got caught because they didn't go home. I had advised them to go home, and they got caught. And they told on me. So this was the first time I got locked up, was in 1959. I got locked up for housebreaking. And then they charged me with insurance for school because I wasn't going to school like I was supposed to. And they let me go. And I stayed out a couple of days. I didn't go to school. I elected to go here and get locked, go on down Maple Glen. And from there, that's where my criminal activities escalated. I went to the farm school down in Law Merle. It was called Maple Glen.
What was that like?
It was like
reform school can be worse than prison.
Yeah, it was a lot of rules down there, and the council was abusing a lot of the young juvenile delinquents, you see, because they was real aggressive, and some of the juvenile delinquents were equally aggressive, and they used to initiate us with these big wood slats right on our hind parts, as we go from cottage to cottage. And I got down there and I elected to go. I told my mother I wasn't going to school. And she said, the truant officer will be there to pick you up, when you come back. So I said, yeah, I'll be back in there, right after school. And I came back in there. They locked me up, took me down. I stayed down there one day, man. And it was snowing real bad down there. And I tried to escape. I said, no, I don't want to be down here, because they threw me in a cell and they locked me up for 24 hours, for observation. So when they opened the door to feed us, me and a European, that came down there with me, he left with me. We escaped. We ran out there and escaped, and they ran us down in the woods in the snow, and brought me back. Then from there, I was all right. I adjusted. It was like It was males. It was some females down there. It was mostly a male institution, but it was females down there too. You know, and it was like a camp. You know, we went hiking, and you know, we had to go to school. It was mandatory for us to go to school. You know, and I learned a lot down. I learned how to play basketball. You know, football. You know, I already knew how to play baseball. I already knew how to box. You know, I learned that out in the streets of Washington, D.C.
Okay, so we'll leave them to go to your book, The Hills of D.C., to take you from 10 up until your federal prison term. And last time we talked mainly about what you did, adventures or misadventures in federal prison. But you got out of federal prison in the late 70s, and you weren't out long, and you ended up with the 27-year prison sentence there in the infamous Lorton Correctional Facility. So tell us about the murder conviction that sent you to Lorton. Were you innocent? Were you guilty? What happened?
Yeah, I was innocent, believe it or not, but I wasn't innocent to the extent where what happened to me bent me out of shape in any way, because I was living that lifestyle, and the same guy that I wound up getting charged for killing him, I was extorting. See,
who was he?
He was a guy by the name of Ralph. They just called him Gangster Ralph. He was in Lewisburg with me, and I knew that he was fearful of me. And once I learned that he was an informant,
he was a drug dealer.
Yeah, I seen him song waving at the DEA undercover, and they waved at him and smiled, and he waved back. And I was watching them at that particular time with a pair of binoculars, because I was trying to figure out who I was going to start uptown, because my partner had gotten busted with our drugs and got locked up, and our finances had depleted. So I went back into knowing what I do best. I went back into extorting stuff. I'm going to go uptown and I'm going to extort me some of these hustlers, you know, where I can keep on living on the level that I was living. So I was watching him, and I learned that he was an informant. So I started extorting him for about like $10,000 a week. He was pulling down some nice money. He was selling like 200 quarters every day for $100 a quarter. And you do the math, that's about like $20,000 a day. So I was hitting him maybe like for just 10 a week. And he had tried to put some people on me. So I pistol whipped him, and I threatened the people that he tried to put on me, because the people he tried to put on me was a dope fiend. And I didn't take him serious. He used to be a gangster, you know, and I put him in check. And so I sent my brother and a friend of mine that was one of my soldiers down in Petersburg that stabbed a couple people for me and was extorting the taxes for me under my orders. So I sent them up there to his apartment to pick up my money, you know. And one thing led to another. They wound up killing the guy by accident, because he ran up on them and they got into a tussle. And my pistol went off. It was a hair trigger. Shot him in the back of the head. He died. And they came looking for me. And they found my brother's fingerprint there. So he ran. I turned myself in, because I know I wasn't in the apartment. I've never been in the apartment. So my fingerprints weren't there, and couldn't nobody place me there, and couldn't nobody ever say they seen me in the apartment building, which was the Woodner Hotel. So I wound up going to trial, and during trial, I tried to save my brother, because I had alibi witnesses and everything, hostile witness, you know, and it didn't work out. You know, I was in the kangaroo court.
They were out there. What do you think? They kind of were like, we got to get this, we want to get him off the street.
Oh, it's no question about it. They wanted the prosecutor. He was disenchanted that I was even back out on the street, because
Disenchanted, that's a good word.
Everybody who had escaped from the jail, I made it back to the street. I was the first one to come back to the street. And he was wondering, how did he get back to the street? Him and them gangsters left out of the jail. He's supposed to still be locked up. He had a bank robbery charge, and plus we gave him 5 years consecutive sentence for the escape. So they wanted me off the street. So the witness said that she didn't see nothing and she didn't hear nothing, but they got her to change the statement to she seen my brother and she heard my voice. And they gave me 27 years of life for that. And they sent me down Lorton.
Okay, so now while you were serving your basically life sentence in Lorton for murder, how did you manage to come to be kind of in control of a lot of what was going on and dominating officers and inmates? It seems like a pretty big and almost hard to believe or incredible task for one man to accomplish. How did you pull it off?
Well, first, I like to say it was my intelligence, my ability to perpetuate fear, and then it took a lot of trust. I had no idea that I was going to get the control over Lorton that I had. The warden gave it to me, but here's why he gave it to me. He gave me that type of control. When
it was about 1979 when you went to Lorton?
78.
78, okay.
Yeah, it was 78. They kept me locked down for a few months. It was 79 when I got out. And Cadillac was there, but a ride took place and he immediately got shipped out. The feds didn't want to take me back. They said, no, now we don't life sentence. He just left me. We put him out. They put me out. You want to know about that? That's all in my book. They cleaned my jacket up in Lewisburg, recommended me for parole, and put me out. So
they wanted to be
through it. So they wouldn't set me back. They kept me in Lorton after that ride that took place in May of 79. So a new warden came in right after that. His name was Benny Hodges. So me and my friend Duffy, we was walking the yard and we was talking about the conditions back there behind the wall. And we seen this guy come in through the front gate. He had a suit on, Jerry curl, looking sort of fly, And we were walking past the walkway that he was coming down, and he seen us, he stopped us, and he spoke to us. So we introduced ourselves, So I introduced myself as McQueen-El, and my friend introduced himself as Doja Hazel. So he explained to us that he was a new warden, So, but when I told him my name, he ran back and he looked at me. He said, "Oh," he said, "So you the guy that's been running my institution?" So I said, "No, I haven't been running your institution." He said, "I thought you would be 6'7", weighing about 250 and have a big old scar across your face." And he said, "Yeah, you're a nice looking guy. You're a pretty boy. How you running my institution?" I said, "Warden, you got me mixed up. I'm not running your institution." I said, "I'm just trying to, live a simple life here. I'm trying to stay in Lorton and keep from going back to the feds." So he said, I said, "And I'm trying to keep peace around me." Now, here's why he said that. I knew exactly what he was talking about. Because when I got to Lorton, it was a lot of thievery going on, you see. And when I left the feds, and when I was down Lorton the first time, I left my locker open. That was a habit of mine. My cell stayed open when I was in Leavenworth, Lewisburg, Petersburg, El Reno, Terre Haute. Hey, nobody stole from me. So when I got down there, it was doing a lot of stealing in the cell block I was in. So I started smacking them. You know, I put my soldiers on them, have staff. I was breaking their jaw. And I was checking them in, the PC block. So he heard about that. And he liked it that because it brought order. Because wherever thieves is at, you ain't got nothing as it is. We didn't have nothing as it is. You know, little property here, little property there, and people stealing it. You know, it creates a lot of confusion and it causes death and unrest. So he was happy to see that I was doing something constructive. So one thing led to another. They had 3 blocks, which was across the walk from the population block. It was called the Brew Room. It was maybe like about 4 or 5 Moors over there that had came back from Marion, Illinois, federal penitentiary. They was wreaking havoc out. I'm talking about the officers couldn't even go in the block without wearing rain clothes. Had to wear rain hat, rain suit. They wore their shields because the inmates, them brothers would take baby oil bottles and they would defecate in them, vomit in them, put eggs in them, magic shade, pee in them, and they would shake all that stuff up and set it in the corner and wait for them to come in. And they would come in, they would shoot them down. And man, that smell wouldn't get off for 3 or 4 weeks. I don't care how much they washed. You see what I'm saying? So they would come in there and it was getting so they couldn't even feed. And then when they got through eating, the inmates on that same tier where the Moors was running, they would throw their food all up on the wall. So garbage, it was unsanitary conditions in there. And the officers couldn't clean it up because they weren't allowed them to clean it up. So the warden came to me. And he asked me, he said, man, I need a favor. So I said, what you talking about, warden? He said, you think you can go on 3 blocks and straighten out my block? He said, I can't even send my officers up in there. He said, when they count, they got to have rain clothing on, they got to have these shields. So I said, he said, the reason why I'm asking you, he said, because you the grand sheik of the Moors out here. You their leader. He said, the ones that doing all that caused me all the problem over there is Moors. So I said, yeah, I can go in there and straighten it out for you. I said, but it's going to cost you big time. So he said, look, whatever's going to cost me, he said, I need you to go in there and organize, clean the block up with your Moors, organize it. He said, I'll give you what you want. So I told him what I wanted. I wanted a card because even the officers couldn't do this. They couldn't go from block to block. I wanted a card. They give me carte blanche to go in any of the blocks to organize the religion. I just didn't go in there and organize the Moors. I organized the Christians, the Buddhists, the Sunnis, the Shiites. And I told them, I said, I want to be able to go in there doing working hours, and I want to organize the religions in all the blocks. And I said, I want you to open up the Buckner building, which was a double wide trail. And I said, I want you to let me get the police, the CO I want to work in that Buckner building. And we want to be able to have our guests to come over there. I said, where they can be with their guests sexually. So he said, man, if you can do my block like that, he said, no problem. Then I complained to him about the phones because the phones was in the back of the visitor hall. So I told him that you're paying officers to monitor phones. What's up with that? You see what I'm saying? They're supposed to be monitoring the inmates. They're beefing a lot about my Moors because that's how he was paying my Moors who I had on my last skate squad. He was paying them with phone time. You see what I'm saying? So I say, you need to put the phones in the block. and let the inmates run. This is how I began to impact Lorton. This is how I began to be known as the mayor.
Okay, but now with your intelligence and good ideas and organizational skills and people skills, you must have also had a stick.
Oh, it's no question. There's no question. I never lightened up. I never lightened up. I constantly was on the offense. You know, I had.
Did anybody try to kill you?
Oh yeah, yeah. They tried to kill me. You know,
tell us
with their mouth. With their mouth, Al.
What's that mean?
See, I kept soldiers around me. You know, I was deep, and there was Moors, and it was like, man, you can't even get nowhere close to him. His Moors is always there, and them Moors will do anything he tell them to do. If he tell them to go out and stab you, they coming out to stab. He got top soldiers. One brother, when I was on the hill, tried to assassinate my character. One brother, name was Aryan. I'm not even gonna call his whole name. I'm gonna spam. I'm gonna show. I'm gonna show a little humility. You see what I'm saying? But his name was Aryan, and D.C. Convicts, ex-cons know what I'm talking about. He slandered me. Al, I had 2 guns, man. I was going to escape with those guns. But when I made my first,
you mean firearms guns?
No, 357 Magnum, hollow bullets, hollow point bullets in it, and a 38 special.
Can you tell us how those came in, or you don't want to do that?
Oh man, I can tell you, officer brought them in. I had officers on payroll, man. But see, here go the whole thing. I didn't have to pay nothing to get the officer to bring it in. You see what I'm saying? I didn't have to pay a thing. Loyalty. See, an officer's not going to put himself out there, his livelihood and his freedom, for no money. I had respect and loyalty, not just from the inmates, but from the officers as well. This particular dude, Aryan, when I took one of my pistols, and I realized I wasn't going to escape. So, you know, and I said, well, I'm not going to shoot nobody with it because I didn't need to. I got the knife. I was the only person that had pistols down there. So I remember the story, hearing the story about Petey Green. When Petey Green set up a stunt to talk down an inmate, I believe the inmate was Bill Brown. He was a Moor. He went up on water tower, and they had it set up where Green was like talking him down like it was instant.
Petey Green, for those who don't know, was a big radio personality there in D.C.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking. The one they made the movie about. So I was trying to walk in his footsteps. I said, well, okay, because I'm trying to get out there to my sons. So I said, I might not get out. Let me go here and let me set it up where I can turn in my Magnum. And I know that'll put me to the street. You know, because they was looking for the gun because I set it up for them to look for the gun.
Oh, so they were in desperate search for the gun.
All that's detailed in my book, how I set that up, how I set the wire out, how I got certain people to say that it was a gun on the compound, and how I got the FBI to get involved and to come down.
Did that get you out?
Yeah, the FBI was involved in trying to find the gun.
I mean, did they get you out of prison early?
No, I was supposed to get out of prison there, but you know what? Chat. See, I had so many people hating on me because I ruled Lorton with an iron hand. Man, my book don't even begin to tell how many people that I had conflict with, how many jaws I broke, how many guys I smacked, how many guys I had stabbed. I didn't stab nobody in Lorton. I stabbed in the federal system. I didn't have to. I sent my soldiers out to stab because I knew that stabbing somebody in Lorton was to send me back to the federal system and I would end up in the ADX or even married. So I was smart. You know, I kept the soldiers around me who was willing to sling the knife. You know, So I turned in my gun. Long story short, I turned in one of my guns, and the director, he sent me to minimum. But the guys talked so bad because he was going to send me to the halfway house. They was talking everything. But the thing that really caught on was this dude that I smacked named Aryan. I smacked him because he owed me. He was running his mouth. And I felt like he was a bitch. So I bitch smacked him. Now normally you don't smack men, not strong men. It's like spitting on them. That's a sign of disrespect. And I smacked him. So when I went to minimum, after I set it up and turned my gun in, he was behind the wall and he slandered me. He put it out that, oh, that was my gun. He told on me. So that thing caught fire because there was a lot of people hating on me. Now, they didn't catch no fire with the guys, the strong men, because they knew better. And they knew that Aryan was a coward. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to write my book, because I wanted to clarify my position. So that's the only attempt I ever had in my life in the feds, in the BOP, or in Lorton, and that was an attempt by way of mouth to assassinate my character, but it didn't work. And he's somewhere right now. High. Well, but I'm not, thinking about him in the least. I'm out here in the community.
Enjoying life.
The community regular. I want to emphasize this because I want my viewers to understand this. I go in the community regular. I donate money out of my pocket to help feed the underserved, the street people on the corner. When the temple was open before COVID, I make my meetings. I donate. I don't have no negative thoughts about nobody. I'm not right now having this interview to glorify my position, because I didn't have the fame. I didn't live the reputation. I am a legend. I can't take that back if I wanted to. DC legend and a legend in the BOP. They still talk about me. And I've been out here 20 years and I'm an old man now. And they still talking about me behind my back. So you know what that lets me know, Al? I took care of my business.
Living legend.
That's why I took care of my business because they still talking about me. And I'm not even studying them. I'm trying to be a servant of God. I'm trying to do his work. I'm not having no negative thoughts about nobody. I'm doing this interview right now, not to promote that lifestyle that I live, but to promote my book.
The Hills
because
of D.C.
It takes finance to uplift a nation. I need money to make a difference for the Moors. I need money to make a difference for my family, my two sons that's right here in this room with me right now, that's been with me ever since I came home. My two sons that I made in Lorton. That's how we was rocking and rolling in Lorton. I made 3 babies down there, 3 sons. One of them died, 2 of them lived. They've been with me ever since I've been home. They're right in this room with me. Love them to death. They were conceived right there in Lorton because of my work. I'm not telling you.
Oh, I got that picture. We got a picture up now of you holding a bottle of Hennessy, and that's in Lorton.
July the 2nd. My birthday. Yeah. That's how I was rocking and rolling in Lorton. I could get in Lorton anything I wanted. I was getting bottles of water, pounds of weed, ounces of dope. And I'm not saying all that to glorify my position, because that's over and done. That's the past. But if you want, I wrote the book as a deterrent to crime and violence for the younger guys. That's why I wrote the book. Not to glorify no position that I had, not to promote that lifestyle, but to simply keep people from becoming involved in that lifestyle and show them that what you can get. Because I started out 8, 9 years old. I had no idea that that lifestyle was going to get so deep for me that it took all my life to get out of it. The last chapter in my book is redemption. It took all those years of me struggling with my higher thoughts and my lower thoughts before I came to the realization that my lower thoughts I'm going to contain them, and it's not going to be a factor in my life. I created a safe haven down there in Lorton. I got to emphasize that for a lot of brothers. And see, I know what I'm doing right now with this interview. No vanity. I'm not speaking vain. But see, to talk, that's not going to save nobody. Brothers done got into the habit of doing a lot of talking about who's right, who's wrong, who's doing this, who should be doing this, who shouldn't be doing that. And I'm saying, like, it's not creating no finance. Prophet Noble Jew Ali stressed and emphasized that it takes finance to uplift a nation. Without finance, we're just a beggar nation. We don't have no academic institutions. We don't have no medical institutions. We don't have no agricultural institutions. We're a beggar nation. You know, so I'm saying this to the Moors, don't hate on me because I'm trying to get finance to help uplift fallen humanity, to help the prophet in his gigantic mission. And I'm not talking about no nickel and dimes. I'm talking about finance that's going to make a difference.
thehillsofdc.com, buy the book. Now, let's go into our last question for today, and then because we got some more stuff coming in a few weeks, but tell us, let's go back and hit a little highlight reel of some of the DC gangsters from your day in the 60s and 70s and compare and contrast them with some of the names that younger people might know now, like, say, Wayne Perry or Rayful Edwards.
Okay, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that out because DC has a habit, or has a history, I should say, of pulling up his rug and sweeping his dirt under. But let me tell you something. During the late middle 60s and late 60s and early 70s, they had what you call a criminal underworld in DC. Now, when I speak about a criminal underworld in DC, it wasn't just a name. At night, when the neon lights came out, the city was hosted by the hustlers in the city, meaning that the entertainers who came down, James Brown and all them entertainers that came down to the Howard Theater, they were hosted by the hustlers in the city.
So did you travel? Did you get a chance in those years to be in other cities much? New York, Philly, Detroit, Chicago, Baltimore?
I've done a lot of travel.
Okay, so tell us how DC, and it must have been different with its predominantly black population at that early date. Tell us how DC felt different and how that might have impacted the nature of the underworld. Well, how was DC different from other cities?
Because the culture was different. You know, just like when the DC printers went into the BOP, and they perpetuated fear. You know, they was like extortioners, armed robbers, and rapists. A lot of that was going on in Lorton, and it went into the BOP. So it's a whole different makeup. DC guys got a whole different makeup. I mean, everybody will tell you that, you know. And that's why guys like, take nothing away from Rayful Edwards, Wayne Perry, but they were what we call Johnny come late. You know, they came in the 80s. We had, renowned notorious. I'm talking about renowned, notorious underworld figures in D.C. I mean, the media takes and glorify Jesse James, and a lot of those Babyface Nelson, John Dillinger. We had underworld figures in D.C. that, hey, that was really more notorious than them. I can name a few. There's a lot of
about one or two. Tell us about one. Tell us about one good one. Now we'll read the rest of your book.
I'll tell you about, I already told you about Cadillac. Cadillac made it to the top of DC's underworld in the early 70s.
And what was he doing for his hustle in the street?
He was robbing. He was kidnapping. He was extorting. That's what he was. And he was taken from the hustlers. You see. So, but he was just one. You had people like William Horst DeLoach. Now, he was William DeLoach, a living legend, Alcatraz man, served time in Alcatraz.
Oh, he's alive now?
No, he died. He just recently, he died that long ago. Yeah. Go up on YouTube and they'll come up. You see, you had so many, you had people like Harry Hawks. Notably, at one point in time, he was the most vicious gangster in DC. Between him and maybe Francis Hopper. DeLoach killed Francis Hopper and his girlfriend. That was contract business
in the 60s?
Yeah, this happened in the early 70s. It's late
60s.
Late 60s. Yeah, you're right. Probably like 69. Hawk got killed in 69, sitting in the car. One of my mentors, Virginia Rudy, it's another notorious gangster that was from Alexandria, Virginia, that was wreaking havoc. And as I might add, Cadillac was from Virginia himself.
Oh, okay.
Was born in Virginia. Yeah. So, but you had gangsters like that, Big John, just to name a few. Big John Joseph, Vernon Cooper. These people, your man Big Boy, Linwood Gray.
Oh, yeah, Linwood Gray.
Yeah, that you asked me about. Yeah, these people were they were notorious, and they were well known. They, and some of them was hustlers, but the majority of them was like cold-blooded predators, cold-blooded killers. And not to speak bad about anyone, but the Jamaicans, when they came down here, the brothers from New York, yeah, they done their thing. They couldn't have survived down here during that time when we had an underworld. You see,
and you guys were mostly all locked up at that point.
They was mostly dead,
or in Lorton,
and the ones that wasn't dead were locked up. By the time they got down here, Wayne Perry, Rayful Evans, and all that, the underworld had diminished. See, before them, it was organized crime. Like I was saying, the entertainers came down here to entertain, at the how at different other theaters. You see what I'm saying? They was hosted by the hustlers, the number backers, the pimps, the bootleggers, the drug boys. But see, here go the thing: the grifters, the con artists, all of them was happening in this city. This city was a hustler spot. But then you had the gangsters, so-called gangsters. I call them underworld figures. They was the ones that you had to worry about because they were sticking up. They were sticking up the number backers. They were sticking up the drug boys. They was taking the pimps' money. See, so that's what was going on in the city.
All right, well, that's a great way to end it. And we want them to go get your book, The Hills of DC. And we can't wait for our next round of interviews in another couple weeks. And I might be out there to see you at the end of the month in person.
I would really enjoy that. We do it.
We're going to go to Ben's Chili Bowl.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, Nathan McQueen-El, as always, thank you.
Thank you, Al, and thank you for having me, man. And I look forward to the next video.
All right, we'll touch base offline. Bye.
Stay blessed and stay safe. All right.